there were several young people who were interested in being part of this presentation, and couldn't because of working or whatever other reasons. But Tiara and I are, well, I shouldn't speak for Tiara. I'm really excited that Tiara and I are your presenters this evening. I hope that Tiara
I
is
am
also
very
excited.
excited.
So, and yeah, so we're talking about engaging young people in the outdoors. Chicago Adventure Therapy does work with young people, a huge variety of ages. We also, most of the young people we work with are people of color. And in this world as it is in the last month or so, that's really relevant to our programming and how we run our programming. So we're going to touch on some issues of diversity in the outdoor also. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about, and we had some technological issues right before the presentation started. So I'm kind of bummed that we're going to be a little bit less put together than we would otherwise. So bear with us. And hopefully what it means is that it just becomes all the more about a conversation as opposed to really being about the PowerPoint and a presentation of us talking to you. So without further ado, just a little bit about us to start with. My name is Andrea. I love the water, have always loved the water. When I was a little kid, anytime that we went anywhere outdoors, anywhere near water, my mom had to pack a spare set of clothes for me because I would be in the water. I did paddle the Pacific Coast last summer. It was really sort of amazing. I'm more than happy to answer any questions people have about that if they would, if you're interested, after the presentation or some other time. And yeah, I'll hand it over to Tiara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiara. I'm a paddler. I am also a BCU level 1 coach, and I have a award called the 2-star. My favorite animal, this is just a random fun fact about me. I just discovered that white tigers actually exist, and they are very beautiful. And this year I attended, I still do attend my dream school, which is Clark Atlanta University. It's a HBCU. If you haven't heard of HBCUs, they're historically Black colleges and universities. So all of the colleges there are full of kids with color like me.
Cool. So, and Chicago Adventure Therapy, we work with Chicago youth, and most of the youth we work with are folks who wouldn't have the opportunity to get outdoors or outside or involved in the sports that we're engaged in. And we use those outdoor sports to build skills, hard skills and soft skills, life skills, social skills, leadership skills. We do a lot with leadership. We usually show a little video about CAT because it's way more interesting than just sort of a dry talk about description of what CAT is. We're trying to be nice and quick this evening. Tiara, you think we should spend the 3.5 minutes or no?
No, that's fine.
All right. So we're happy to show it to you at some point if you would like to see it. It's kind of fun. I put a lot of work into it. So hopefully at some, why is it not going? There we go. So one of the things that we lost when we had some technological difficulties was that we lost all our notes about who was presenting which slides. But Tiara, I believe you were doing this one.
Yeah, so today we're basically going to be talking about how to engage young people, and these are some of the things that you would need to engage them a little. So fun, of course, a lot of young people, we like to have fun. That's what most of our life is about, basically. Challenge and I
Autonomous.
autonomous learning. Sorry, y'all, bear with me. Autonomous learning, which is basically a lot of what CAT does is like, you know, they'll show you something, but the rest you'll have to figure it out. And yeah, we're going to be talking about communities and skill and the opportunity that CAT has given us, and being giving us the opportunity to visit experienced paddlers and for us to also be the experienced paddler.
And then I don't know what you can see on your phone, those last two. Can you see the last two, or are they covered
Oh
up?
yeah. About knowing, sorry,
No
about
worries.
knowing your audience and not making any assumptions about your audience.
Cool. So I think this one was me, Tiara.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're going to work with young people, it has to be fun. If we start out with, sort of how do you do this skill exactly right, we lose young people right away. And if we want young people to keep coming into the outdoors, same thing. It's got to be fun. Don't be afraid to be silly. Let young people be the leaders. That's fun. Try to make a good impression, but don't work too hard. Don't worry too hard about what impression you're making. And, keep it simple. That's a lot more fun than being really complicated. So it's got to be fun. That one's you, Tiara.
Yeah, so I first got introduced to CAT in about 2014, 2013, 2014, something around there. My first day, I really hated kayaking. I'm not even gonna lie. I really hated it. Like, I got stuck on rocks, and I've never been in a boat, and the life jacket was suffocating me, and it was just bad. Like, it was really bad. But once I left from the trip, because it was like a long 7-day trip. Eventually, it got better as the days went by. But once I got home, it was kind of like it was one of those things where it was like, okay, even though it was challenging, I had fun, and my pride was like, you just can't show up to those people places and like not come back. And now I use kayak as like a very therapeutic way. Like, I really love it.
Nice. So we try to keep it fun. We try to keep it challenging. We try to gotta have opportunities for autonomous learning. And I think this one was you too, Tiara.
Yeah. So with me being with Kat, like I said, on the outline, it's like they'll show you something, and when they teach you a skill, they make sure that you understand it for sure. And they teach us to make sure that other people understand it. But most of it is like, okay, now that I showed you how to do this, you understand how to do it. Now you go out and try it. And I really like that about Cat, because it's like, it doesn't give me like a classroom setting kind of feeling, because young people don't like that.
Yeah.
They want you to engage them, like make them figure it out. Like, that's really how we learn stuff.
Yeah, so this photo on the left here, that's Zach, who we really miss. He's in New Orleans now, and me. And Zach's overturned boat. It was his first day in surf, and that wave that capsized his boat taught him a whole lot more about surf than me talking at him about paddling in surf. And we do at CAT, we do a lot of paddling, and so most of our photos are sort of paddling heavy. Tiara, I couldn't remember which one of us wanted to talk about community.
I think this one was you.
Cool. So it's really interesting to me, young people always consistently talk about the importance of community in as something that's really important for them to come back and continue engaging in outdoor sports. And Zach and Tiara really put this slide together, sort of some of the things that were important about community. And they just were talking about how it formed. And I think it's really true for any of us who are outdoor people. If you ask anybody in the outdoors or in a particular sport, why do you do it? Always the answer ends up being it's about the people, right? It's about the sport, it's about the outdoors, it's about all sorts of stuff, but always you end up coming back to it's about the people. And that is true for young people also. And so if you want young people to be involved in the outdoors and you want them to keep coming back, you have to be able to foster a sense of community. And this this one is one that Zach did, and I've always left it in our presentations because he loved this slide, and none of us quite understand what his bullet points are. But I think, Tiara, you were going to talk about it for the main point.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually figured out what he was referring to. It's kind of like a millennium baby thing. So it's like, when we were in grade school or whatever, we would have these cards. And green meant you were good for the day. Yellow meant, okay, you messed up a little for the day. And red meant like, okay, you're getting a call home. So I think what he meant was it was always, CAT always gives you a goal to set. And they really make you want to achieve that goal. They really motivate you. They really push you to achieve that goal.
Nice. Yeah, and it's achievable, and there's a clear benchmark for when you've reached that goal.
Yeah.
So it's clear. And then Tiara, you were doing these next two also.
Mm-hmm. So working with CAT, I have met some really experienced paddlers. In the first photo right here, this is one of the CAT volunteers. His name is Jim. He was a Olympic coach for, I believe it was whitewater, maybe?
Yeah, for slalom.
Yeah. And he's really experienced.
An Olympic judge, but yeah.
Yeah, he's really experienced. And I actually learned a lot of stuff from Jim, and I would have not met Jim or learned anything from him if it wasn't for CAT.
And then on the right.
Oh, on the right, this is, I believe this was with a experienced paddler named John.
Yeah, that is John.
Yeah, and he's also, I believe he's a coach too, I think.
He is a coach. He's a BCU coach level 5. There's not very many of those in this country.
Yeah, and he's also taught us. John is more of the, when I was talking about like they'll show you something but then you have to figure it out yourself. John is more of that type of coach.
He never gives you answers.
Yeah, like ever.
He does not give you answers. He just asks you more questions. And John works out of Maine, and so for me it was really exciting to be able to have CAT young people get to work with him. They've worked with coaches out of California, coaches out of Maine, coaches right here in Chicago. We've taken young people to Scotland, where they worked with Gordon Brown, which if you're a kayaker, you know there are some people who assert that he's the best sea kayaker in the world and the best sea kayak coach in the world. So it's really, really cool to me that our young people get to work with those really experienced outdoor leaders. And it's definitely one of the things that keep people coming back. On the other side of that coin, also, this one was you also, Tiara.
Yeah, on the other side of that, CAT also gives us opportunities to be the learner. So I want to say maybe every year CAT has this event where they invite people that from the programs that they work with, they invite them on a big trip with the people that's in the paddling community, and the more experienced paddlers in our community get to teach those people. So most of those children are beginners. they were like me when I started, live in the city, never heard of kayaking, never even got to sit in a kayak, and we get to teach them. And I really like that. It's really cool for them to see, like, okay, if she can do it, so can I.
Yeah. So, you know, if you want young people to be engaged, you got to give them access to the folks who really know what they're doing, but then you also got to let them be the experts. And so this photo here is a young man who was involved in CAT for a while. He and Tiara became coaches at the same time. And the thing Tiara didn't tell you about her coach certification is that when she got that coach certification, she became the youngest paddle sport coach in North America. And I believe is still the youngest person to hold that in North America to hold that particular award. Zach got that same award at the same time, and he's teaching Nancy over here a draw stroke. For any of you who are paddlers, you know that's what helps you go sideways. So Nancy had paddled for 20 some years, but had no formal instruction, and there were a lot of things that Zach knew how to do that Nancy didn't. And we're really careful about building leadership and then giving young people a chance really to exercise that leadership. So Tiara is the one who taught Nancy a rescue because Nancy didn't know how to do a rescue, and we think that it's really important to know how to do rescues. Cool. And Tiara, we gave you all the slides, didn't we? You wanted to talk about this.
Yeah. So this one is basically like knowing your audience, because a lot of youth don't really kayak that I know of. Like, have they ever kayaked before? Do they know what kayaking is? Are they afraid of water? Like, can they swim? And you also have to be very comfortable with them not knowing stuff, and you have to be patient explaining it to them also.
Cool. Next slide, Tiara.
Mm-hmm. So this one I would like to touch on a lot. This just is about not making any assumptions about the people that you work with, especially because you guys said that you wanted to add more diversity into your club. So you shouldn't follow these statistics, because a lot of the times those statistics are wrong, and they're not nowhere near the young people that you are working with, nor nowhere near the young people of color that you're working with. You don't have to be nervous around them. Just really be yourself. That's what we like the most, is when you're very authentic and you're just yourself. We'll accept you for who you are.
Cool. So yeah, it's really important not to make assumptions. And Tiara and I both, you know, we made this slide originally 5 years ago talking about engaging young people in the outdoors. And you can't make any assumptions about things like, do your people know how to swim, or do they not know how to swim? Are they nervous? Are they not nervous? You can't make assumptions on that front, and you can't make assumptions about their lives. And in Chicago Adventure Therapy, we're getting ready to kind of make a transition here in this presentation, because in Chicago Adventure Therapy, many of the young people we work with, most of the young people we work with are young people of color. And so going back a slide, knowing your audience and not making any assumptions. We have learned that in order to engage people in the outdoor sports and keep them coming back, we have to be able to talk with people about their lives and the things that impact their lives, and not make any assumptions about that also. And we're just going to go through some of the things that impact the lives of the very specific young people who we work with. And just to be clear, many of these things, this is a post to our Facebook page from 2014. And we're still looking at a lot of the same things today. And I'm not usually in the habit of reading PowerPoint slides, but I'm going to go ahead and read it nonetheless. And I'm sorry that takes a minute or so. But so this was all the way back in 2014. One of our partner agencies told us that they like working with us because our staff are not afraid of the young people they serve. This particular agency works primarily with young men of color. They have the experience every day of watching other people cross to the other side of the street when they see them. The dominant culture in this country is scared of young men of color. Our young men of color get portrayed as thugs, as criminals, as dangerous young men you should cross the street to avoid. Our experience is quite the opposite. The young men we work with are trying to make meaning of their lives in a world that rarely recognizes their potential or their value. They attend funerals for their peers. They attend protests when violence in and against their communities increases. And we've canceled days of programming in deference to both. Our city and our country is not safe for these young men. Nearly every one of them has been stopped by the police at some point, and any one of them could be shot. So we'd like to add our small stream of photos that provides one small corrective voice to the images of our young men who get portrayed as thugs, as criminals, and as dangerous young men. We would like to add images of power, of tranquility, and of skill, and images of young men who need to be taken seriously and who need to live. So this was something that we posted to our Facebook page in 2014, and it was after Ferguson. And these days, now in the last month after George Floyd, there are the same issues that are happening.
And it's just not, see, the thing about this is it happens every day. It just isn't broadcasted to the news every day, but it happens every day. It's not just George Floyd. It's been happening for years now. It's really something that you can try to change, but it's like it's a tough issue a lot. And a lot of Black men, they have to worry about, like, when they get stopped by the police, they have to be nervous. We, like, literally, Black people, as we literally have protocols just for us when we get stopped by the police. And it's just not even the police killing us, but now it's our own kind because of the systematic racism and everything else.
So one of the things that when I started CAT that struck me was that when I paddle alone or when I paddle with other white people, we don't get stopped by the police. But when we paddle together with CAT, it is fairly common that the police come by and they take another round and they slow down and they look at us real carefully. And there have been times when we have been asked to leave because somebody called to make a report about us. And I had never experienced that until I started running programming with CAT. So this next slide is one that Tiara told me like 4 years ago that I needed to add because it is not just young men of color, young women of color also face violence and stereotypes. And again, our experience of our young women is quite different than the stereotypes that are out there. And what we see are young people who are graceful and they're powerful in the face of fear. And they have powerful dreams. They get themselves outside of their comfort zones and they stay there long enough to learn something new about themselves and of what they're capable of. So the images that we want to be able to share of them are young women who are powerful and graceful and skilled, and images of dignity and joy. Oopsies. Sorry, it didn't do all of them. So Tiara, you wanted to talk about this slide a little bit more.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they just see Black men getting killed, but it's just not Black men. I know a lot of Black women that has gotten killed due to violence, due to just being Black. And you'll a lot of different races will never experience being a criminal just based off of your skin color. Like, you can literally be a Black person walking in a predominantly white neighborhood. Let's just say that they live there or whatever, and you could get stopped by the police and possibly killed just because you're Black. And it can be women, men, children. It's all Black people.
So this next slide, in our introductory slides, you may have noticed that Tiara and I both included the pronouns that we use. And on this slide, every single one of the photos that you're seeing has at least one person in the photo who is transgender. So we work with a fair number of young people who are LGBTQ and a fair number who are transgender. And the number of transgender people, and especially transgender people of color, who are being killed is really distressing. And the amount of violence that they experience is also distressing. And we have often found that in being able to get these young people outdoors, we get to give them an experience where they are safely and powerfully embodied in a healthy way. And that's important for us, because these young people who we work with are young people who we really love. This next slide is one that the updates got undone. So I'm not gonna go ahead and do this slide because it's got old statistics. But let's just, the upshot of this slide is there are a lot of young people in Chicago who are getting shot and killed. We just had a really, really horrible weekend with the level of violence in our city. And I think, Tiara, you wanted to talk about this slide also.
Yeah, we're talking about this issue because it's not only like, if you're gonna paddle with these young people, you have to know that our lives just don't stop once we start paddling with you. Like, once we go home, we have to go home to violence and shootouts every day. And it's gotten so bad that honestly, it's like gunshots in Chicago is just a normal sound. Like, we hear the ambulance and gunshots all day more than we hear the ice cream truck, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're paddling with them, if you're paddling with young people, period, you have to understand that their lives also carry on with you when you guys paddle. And if you want to build a community with them, then you have to understand that they are a product of their environment, and that's just where they come from. It's not something that we can control.
So these are the young people who we work with at Chicago Adventure Therapy. And we have, over the years, had to grapple with these issues and learn to talk about these issues. And when I say learn to talk about these issues, that's very much about me and the other white folks who are in leadership in the organization, because people of color talk about race. It's much more uncomfortable for people who are white. But it's something that I have had to learn to do, and I have had to provide the leadership in our organization to do that, because if I don't, as the person who has power because I'm the executive director, and because in the world of cat, I'm old. In the world of wilderness and outdoors, I'm still sort of the baby, but in the world of cat, I'm old. I'm the executive director. I'm the one who has power. And if I am not the person who starts the conversation, nobody else is going to. So I've had to learn to do that. For other folks in other areas working with young people, there's going to be other issues that you have to be able to talk about, that you have to be able to engage young people around. So, you know, the issues for organizations in the UP working with young people and trying to engage young people in the outdoors, they're going to be dealing with different issues than we are in Chicago. You know, in the UP, they're going to be dealing with issues of poverty like we are. They're going to be dealing with, you know, sort of the isolation that comes in rural areas. The issues are different, but the reality and the truth is the same, that you have to be able to get to know your young people. You have to be able to invite them into your community with their full identity and with their full lives that come with them. So yeah. So let's talk a little bit about race then. And when I first talked about doing this presentation, the request was more about, hey, let's just talk about engaging young people in the outdoors, and the club's talking a little bit about diversity, but mostly we want to talk about engaging young people in the outdoors. And then that was the day, I think, that George Floyd was murdered, and the world has changed a lot in a month. And so as I spoke a little bit more with the leadership of the club, there was a request there. They said, yeah, go ahead and talk about those issues of diversity. And it's something that's important to me, and I think really relevant to the outdoor world. So we don't want to take too much longer, you know, we'll be running up against some time. So, but we have a group of young adults who we've been talking about this publicly since 2015. After Ferguson, I learned that I needed to be able to talk about this. So, Yara, I think there might be some sounds coming in from you.
Yeah, it's raining. Sorry.
Gotcha. No worries. So I had to learn to talk about that. So we've been talking about this publicly for about 5 years, and for the last 2 years at Kanuakopia, young people have presented a talk called Let's Talk About Race. This year they put it together. They started planning it in January, put it in February, and then Kanuakopia was canceled the day before it was supposed to start. So they took it out online, and if you want to hear a little bit more about it, I hope that you will go to our Facebook page and watch the video that they made of it. But they have some really concrete suggestions that they ask of the outdoor world and of leaders in the outdoor world. So this is a little bit funny for Tiara and I to present about, because Tiara was off at college when we were putting this presentation together, because it was before coronavirus canceled colleges. And so I was very much a part of this. None of the young people of color who put it together are here. So it's this funny thing where I may be talking a little bit more about what our young people of color have really specifically asked of the outdoor world. So Tiara and I are just kind of throwing this one back and forth a little bit. But we did, with that presentation, started with a conversation about, you know, is this relevant in the outdoor world, and is it important? And hopefully, given what the conversation we've just had, I hope you'll agree with me that it is relevant. I certainly believe that if we want to engage young people in the outdoors, it's relevant. In February, when our young people were putting this together, these are some of the things that some of the reasons that they thought that it was relevant. is that Kat travels a lot, and they said, hey, we need to feel comfortable in the places that we are traveling. There's one young man in particular who's really, really passionate about this and makes sure to say it all the time. He says, hey, you know what? And this is it's a paddling centric group, but the outdoors also, he says, we need to have young people of color in order to survive. Because, you know, the outdoor world, there's a lot of us who are kind of old. And this country, the demographics are diversifying, and that is more true the younger you get. And so if we want young people to lead, it's going to be young people of color. And so we have to be able to make this community a place that is interesting and welcoming and comfortable for them if we want our community to survive. That same young man, and he was part of this presentation when we gave it at the Quiet Adventures Symposium in Michigan. I think it's really sweet. These are his words exactly. He said, as people retire, we need younger people to take over so that older folks can rest. So I think that's pretty sweet. But those are some of the reasons before the current events right now in the world that our young people thought that it was relevant and important to be able to talk about race in the outdoor world. Tiara, is there anything that you want to add to that slide, or should I move on?
Yeah, I think you explained that perfectly.
Okay, cool. So they came up basically with some things that they want people to know, some things that they want people to think about, and some things that they want people to do. And they said, you know, some common experiences of theirs that they have. They said it was important to them to say that, hey, just because you haven't experienced something doesn't mean that it doesn't happen for other people. They were very clear and very direct about saying, hey, you may know some people of color, but if you have, you know, one or two friends who are people of color, not everybody is like that one. And they were pretty clear and direct about that. One of the other things that is always a part of this conversation in Chicago Adventure Therapy is about stairs. And the person, actually, the young adult, the young woman who is the person who is most frequently talks about this one. You know, we had an event that was at Devil's Lake State Park, which is a venue that we love because we can climb, we can camp, we can paddle, we can do all sorts of things. And we were at the lake and she was walking with me and she said, Andrea, you know, people always stare when we're here at this venue. And I looked around and I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. And I said, you know, should we look into other venues to use? And she said, no, it's a really good venue because we can do all these different things. We can climb, we can paddle, we can camp, and people stare everywhere. So yeah, they just wanted to say, hey, you know what? Stairs are rude. And then reiterating again, they said, hey, we all have different stories. So what really struck me is that what our young people of color were saying really loudly and clearly is, hey, we need you to see all of us as individuals because we are different from each other. Anything you would want to add to that one, Tiara?
Yeah, I want to touch base on the stairs, especially. I know Andrea has stressed this, but I really want to stress this because it just isn't in the paddling world. It's everywhere you go as a colored person, period. So it's like we'll go to these paddling events and sometimes they're out of state. And, you know, like when we show up, we're a bunch of colored people and maybe like four white folks. So we absolutely get stares. And it's not how you stare at us. Well, it is. It isn't. I'm trying to find a good way to explain this. It's the intention of the stare that's the problem. It's not the fact that you're staring at us. It's the intention of the stare. Like those real uncomfortable stares. It's that we definitely are just like, and we can tell. We can absolutely tell if it's just a stare or if it's just an uncomfortable stare. And I also want to touch on that we all have different stories, because oftentimes we're all grouped as one group, and that's it. We're all going to be like this. We're all going to do this. And most of the time, that's absolutely not the case. You have to get to know us, say a simple hello, how are you? Like, yeah, you really have to be able to individualize everyone that you work with.
Cool. So as part of that piece of things that they wanted people to know, they also just wanted to say a little bit about us. So this is a photo of one of our young people who started with Kat in 2014. She was 18 years old at the time and 4 months pregnant, has 2 little baby boys now, and this is her in 2017. And so our young people frequently kind of feel like the assumption is that they don't know how to paddle, or they don't know how to set up a tent, or they aren't competent in the outdoors. And so they wanted to say, they were sort of a little bit about us. They said, hey, we are competent paddlers. Again, we're, a paddling group. But they said, hey, we're skilled paddlers. And you'll see again that one of the things they said is no 2 stories are the same and no 2 people are the same. But they said one of the things we all share is a love of paddling. And I think that that's an important piece there also, that in the outdoors, when we introduce young people to the outdoors and they develop a love for the outdoors, it's something that we can share. And there's just 2 more about this. I think we're running a little bit over, so we're going to wrap it up here as quick as we can. But some of the things they wanted people to think about are how it is really that you interact with young people, and they really wanted people to take a step back and pause and think about that really deeply, and also to think about how your beliefs influence your daily interactions. So Tiara, anything you want to add to that one?
No.
Okay. And then there were some things that they wanted you to do. So Tiara wasn't part of this particular group, but you'll see that you might remember she said, hey, just, ask questions, say hi, a friendly hello. And that was one of the things that this particular group also stressed, is they said, don't assume anything, and just use open-ended questions. Ask us about ourselves in a friendly tone. And if you think that maybe we don't know what we're doing, ask about our experience. So they also, and Tiara said this earlier also, they said, don't be afraid. They said, just ask, say hello, come get to know us, or ask open-ended questions. And they also said, we really want you to remember you can always learn more. And so to really think through, are there ways of learning a little bit more about navigating in a community that is really diverse? So they also talked a little bit about code switching, and that was really important for one of our young people. We're kind of running short on time, so I'm going to skip that for now, but happy to talk about it if anyone has questions about it. Anything else you want to add to this slide, Tiara?
No.
Okay. So this is the slide that the group that did that presentation did, just sort of as their summary slide. Things that when I asked them, what are the things that you hope people take away from a conversation about race in the outdoors? And these are the things that they said. So one of the things that Kat really does that we try to do a lot is, this has been a little bit of a heavy conversation here, the second half of it, talking about racism and talking about, some of the things that can be pretty uncomfortable. And there's just two places where I want to leave it to bring it back a little bit. One is that for me, as a white person, this is a really uncomfortable topic. It's really uncomfortable for me to talk about it. I hate talking about it. Tiara can tell you, though, I think that I talk about it a lot.
Yes.
And that is because of who the young people are who we work with. And if I can't talk about it, then in fact, our young people can't be comfortable. So that it's important to talk about, but if it's uncomfortable, that's okay. I just kind of throw myself at the discomfort and the awkwardness, and I say a lot of things wrong, and I do a lot of really stupid stuff. And so long as I'm being authentic and being willing to talk about it, our young people are very, very generous to me. And the other place that I want to leave it, this has been heavy. The fact is, in the outdoors, it's about the people. And every single one of us, we're people, we're individuals. We love being in the outdoors together, and all this heavy stuff, when it comes down to it, say hi to people, ask questions. And, we're all individuals with, quirks, funny little quirks. And so one of the things that we do at CAT is try to be really aware of that. But also it goes back to the very beginning of this presentation about how do you engage young people in the outdoors. And one of the things that we really work at is building leadership. Because if we want outdoor sports to be able to continue, we have to be able to have young people engaged in the outdoors. And if they're going to be engaged and they're going to become the leaders, we have to build them as leaders. And so that's one of the things that we actually put a lot of energy towards. And so I would leave it there. We do have some slides if people are interested in, more specific questions about leadership, but we're going to go ahead and not get into that and go ahead and stop there.